Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 3 of the Echoes of Emery podcast. I am Megan,
And I am Laura once again.
and we are here with episode 3, The Invisible Threads, weaving together the echoes and underpinnings of our lives.
Yeah, so sorry about the little delay. We had a little technical difficulties.
With the mics.
Yeah, but we are here
And
to bring you this latest episode.
yeah. And then in between there, we went on vacation.
Mhm.
And so everything just kind of had to halt for now. We're hoping that the mics don't do what it did to us the last time we were in the middle of recording this. So we're still kind of getting a feel for how frequently we want to put out episodes that really is just kind of realistic to our timing and time management between the jobs that we have. So we're doing our best. Hopefully, at some point again, it can get more consistent. But basically, what do we mean by this? Like these invisible threads.
Yeah, um, I mean, I'm not a seamstress. I've heard of invisible threads, but are we talking like sewing today or like the Taylor Swift song
Uh,
Invisible
there
String?
it
Like
is.
what are we getting at
I knew
here?
I was waiting for it. I didn't know where she was going to bring up Taylor Swift and that.
In the first 2 minutes, don't
In the
worry.
first 2 minutes, we got that. So you guys should just start like playing bingo at how many times Laura's going to make a Taylor Swift reference in each episode or throughout the episode. But um, there's a meaning behind this, and I did some research just to see what was out there, and it actually does represent these like concepts and beliefs that there are subtle links between souls that are interconnected. And a lot that I looked at, or I was just like, really went to Google
Mhm.
and was looking through different links, and a lot talked about like who you are as a person is, or like and like who you're destined to be with, and really revolved or related a lot to um, fate.
Yeah. I mean, like just who you're going to be too, I feel like
Yeah,
determines that as well.
yeah. So there's like um, a lot of it related to that. Anytime I typed it in, and there were actually like I think a lot of books
Hmm.
or a few books I saw with that title. So we're not trying to take um, that, like whoever has it copyrighted really didn't
Not trying to recreate the
yeah,
wheel
look into
here,
that.
just
So we're
talking
gonna get
about it.
yeah, we're gonna get into it a little bit more, but I do believe in though what's already out there, right? Of this concept of an invisible thread.
Hmm.
Um,
Just kind of connecting everything to each other in this very big, but also at the same time very small world that we live in.
yeah, and so I think we can start to get into what an invisible thread or these invisible threads means for us.
Hmm.
And for us, what we're going to talk about today is living with the memories of our past experiences. And those are our invisible threads.
Hmm. I feel like some things that we would rather not think of or not see, we try and keep them in invisible threads, but they're still there.
Yeah. So if we got more technical with
Hmm.
the thread,
Hmm.
in more of my searching around,
Dr. Google.
yeah, but the actual then, so a definition.
Hmm. Oh, sorry, that wouldn't be the doctor. It'd just be the Google machine.
Yeah. The Google machine told me
Hmm.
of the definition of an invisible thread.
Hmm.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
All right, so first, it is basically nylon. And if someone out there wants to correct me on this, who is like an actual seamstress and knows more about this, please correct us. Because like we said, we aren't.
Some kind
And
of
this isn't what we're really
material.
talking about yet. We're just kind of having fun with like comparing the different definitions. So here we go. But an invisible thread is a type of thread that is virtually impossible to see once it is stitched into a piece of fabric, It is often incredibly thin and transparent, making it an ideal choice for fabrics that require a barely there seam. Laura, thoughts on this? Where do you think I'm going with that?
Um, barely there threads just reminds me of underwear.
Gosh,
Um,
dang it. This is the like, yeah.
where are you trying to go?
Well, like, think about this. So it's an invisible thread.
Mm-hmm.
It's virtually impossible to see once it is stitched into a piece of fabric.
Mm-hmm.
It is incredibly thin and transparent, making it an ideal choice for fabrics that require a barely there seam. So this is how my brain works with a lot of metaphors and analogies
Mm-hmm.
to connect everyday or ordinary things in life with something deeper. So I feel like sometimes we can experience things in life that
Mm-hmm.
are so intense that our reactions and our responses to those events can become invisible,
Mm-hmm.
like this thread.
Yeah.
And our nervous system takes the string, so that incredibly thin, transparent, barely there, our nervous system takes that, and that's an ideal choice then, right? To then just take the string
Stitch it in there.
and stitch the memories up
Mm-hmm.
in different parts of our body, and then we never see it,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe we never feel it.
Yeah. But I do feel like sometimes though you got those invisible strings though that kind of poke at you sometimes, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Where like you can feel it but you can't see it
Yeah.
and it's just irritating to you and you just feel like you want to try and cut off that part or tear it out of your clothing,
Yeah.
so to say.
Yeah. Because I do that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Especially like tags. I
Yeah,
know
you
it's
won't
not,
find a single item of clothing with a tag in this household.
no, I can't. It bothers
Mm-hmm.
me. But like, there's always like an inside, like of the shirt, like usually
Mm-hmm.
right by my hip, or
Mm-hmm.
there's like on a new pair of jeans or something.
Oh yeah,
It's
that
like
one
one of those
flips
that's like
out.
stuck in like the loop
Mm-hmm.
or inside. You know what I'm talking about, by
Yep.
the waistband.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, so I'm thinking here, if that bothers me,
Mm-hmm.
and that bothers you too,
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure.
then I'm just gonna say that certainly our memories can do that to us, especially if we don't do anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to do something about like those little tags, or the maybe the nylon, depending on how it was made, whatever the thread. If it was just like clumped together and it was poking at me, I'm gonna want to cut some of that
Mm-hmm.
because it bothers me. Why wouldn't I want to then do something about my memories if I'm saying this can operate
Mm-hmm.
like the same way?
Yeah. Um, I mean, yeah, so like what I know we want to cut these things off all the time, but like there's still experiences and there's still things that make us who we are.
Mm-hmm.
So like sometimes if you do cut a stitch, like and it just unravels the whole piece then. So like I feel like it can also be difficult. I feel like that's why it is so good to talk about things, to talk with people about things. They can kind of be the people who be like, "Oh no, don't cut that one.
Mm,
That's a good one to keep. I know you don't like it, but it still makes the piece what it is. And if you get rid of that, then it's just all going to fall apart."
ooh,
Deep.
yeah.
Yeah.
I want to like let that one digest a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
because these threads are it's holding our memories together,
Mm-hmm.
and when we're trying to go address it, you're talking about if we do cut it off, like it's like cutting a memory off, or like trying to forget about it,
Mm-hmm.
and change the shape of it, change the way that it makes us feel. But some of these things we can't,
Mm-hmm.
because if we did,
It would completely change your whole narrative as a
oh, the
person.
narratives, yeah. And we talked about something I want to clear up in the last episode,
Mm-hmm.
like because I think this is taking us back to these threads, about in like our early life experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And I talked about the ACEs, our adverse childhood experiences.
Mm-hmm.
This was my brain working faster than I speak sometimes. I mentioned how like everyone has this, and I think we were in the just really in the mode and the mindset of maybe those in our field, because
Mm-hmm.
there is research to say that there is a high percentage that most of us in the helping profession would score relatively high or
Mm-hmm.
somewhere on the ACEs questionnaire. I misspoke. I think it made it sound like every single person walking this earth has it. I should not have spoken that totality or like that concretely.
Yeah.
So, not everyone
Mm-hmm.
would score high. Um, there's there's different scoring results to this. So that was my fault. I just wanted to clear that up. Do you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, and I mean, as far as like the adverse childhood
Mm-hmm.
experiences, it's not like always like super duper traumatic things either. Like these are just experiences that have happened that have then
Yeah.
created the kind of person that you are today
Yeah.
or the way that you feel about certain things.
Yeah, and I could like spend a whole lot of other like a whole episode probably talking about this, but if
Mm-hmm.
anyone was interested to like look at that questionnaire or know more about it, like please feel free to message me maybe
Mm-hmm.
specifically, and I can send you the link
Yeah.
to show what it looks like. So that was totally my bad on not giving more context to it. So hopefully that clears that up.
Yeah.
But going back to our early life like experiences, you are touching on, Laura, this part that like how this starts to manifest in our lives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I mean, as far as like us or you, how do you feel like they have shown up or manifested?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think there could be a variety of responses to like how these invisible threads show up later in life.
Mm-hmm.
If we're looking at things that we experienced when we were younger, or if not just when you're younger, maybe you're older now and maybe you're younger is like your 20s or 30s, right? Or I'm even thinking about maybe in this moment too, like maybe just from like within the last 10 years. I was
Mm-hmm.
still younger then.
Yeah.
So it's just our previous life experiences. And I'm always, for the sake of this podcast, going to be sticking with what relates to me and my experiences and our experiences, and the same
Mm-hmm.
for you, right?
Yeah.
So when I think about how my invisible threads show up now,
Mm-hmm.
or even as I reflect today and look back in hindsight and see how they showed up, right? I'm thinking about previous and the various painful experiences and memories that I have. And with that, thoughts, emotions, and behaviors that I've had or have that are stitched around that particular life event. And then where else in my life do I have those same or similar reactions and responses in my the way that I'm thinking, like specific thoughts that I have or those narratives?
Mm-hmm.
What emotions, what emotional experiences am I having? And what are my behaviors? Like what am I doing? What am I not doing? What did I do then? What am I still doing that's the same? Right? That's now where I'll start to see the thread like poking me, but
Mm-hmm.
I can't see it, but
Yeah.
I know something's. Is that that way for you too?
Yeah. I'm just wondering, do you have like any kind of example that you feel comfortable sharing, or like what comes to mind when you think of some of these uh, connected experiences?
Yeah, and I was gonna. We could get there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No. I mean, do you have one that's coming up too?
Not necessarily a specific one at the moment.
But do you have that like with your like experiences? Like you're also thinking about
I mean,
how is
yeah.
this shaped?
I think that I definitely can react to some situations the same as like I have always done,
Mm-hmm.
or had the same feelings that I had had in the past about things as well. So, um, I don't know, as far as like the different types of invisible threads,
Mm-hmm.
you had like touched on emotional, spiritual, psychological, cultural, etc. I mean, what else? Are there any other types that you can think of?
Well, I think like we're just getting to that spiritual and cultural
Mm-hmm.
component. Um, like they're all everything intertwined.
Oh yeah.
Everything works together. Everything affects everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're as a society more and more getting on board with this and understanding this on deeper levels because more people are starting to talk about all of it
Mm-hmm.
working together now
Oh
versus
yeah.
like separately.
Mm-hmm.
So these threads aren't just limited to thoughts, those narratives, your emotional experiences, your behaviors. Like we have the spiritual and cultural threads.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're talking about different, the same invisible threads but more of them, and different parts of us,
Mm-hmm.
which is the same thing like a piece of clothing, or I'm looking at like the stitching on our couch. Like it's holding everything together and
Mm-hmm.
different parts of it together. And just to touch on real quick, with some of then this again can be a whole nother segment,
Mm-hmm.
but these cultural threads, that's passed on to us.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm talking, this is called this is generational. This stuff can be passed through to us through the womb. And that's going to start. I know I just opened up a whole nother door of like, Megan, what do you mean by that?
Mm-hmm.
But our DNA,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a lot of research, then a lot of research has come out to um, show us that these things just get passed down. And
Oh
so
yeah.
we've already got some of the invisible threads there, and we
Mm-hmm.
don't know about it until later on in life. And like, even just think about early on when we're so young.
Mm-hmm.
Um, think about when we were so young, right? The things that we didn't know that our parents went through or that our other family members went through. Like, we're just bebopping through life in the 90s,
Mm-hmm. One an
not
age.
going to therapy as kids in the
Oh
90s,
yeah.
just figuring, like, we weren't going to figure out these threads that just automatically got stitched into us.
Mm-hmm.
And now our storytelling gets different, right? So to start to like bring up examples, we don't want to forget too that there are also positive. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you think about it's sounding like right now we're talking about all this being like negative.
Mm-hmm.
And sorry if you heard our dog shake her ear
Should
right now.
have.
I think these little mics picked up on that.
Yeah.
That was just Mia.
She's just a little irritated. Yeah, as far as like the generational trauma too, so I actually had just watched a reel this morning about it,
Mm,
about how like things that have happened in generations before us get poured down
mm-hmm.
into the next, into the next, into the next. And then it came to like our generation and the fact that
Yeah,
we are doing things about it.
yeah,
And so it dilutes it. And then
yeah.
the people in the next generation can have like either a diluted version or none at all. So I think that that's really awesome. Something that our
Mm-hmm.
generation is doing is
Yep.
going to therapy, doing the things to better ourselves so that we are stopping the generational trauma, making it stop here,
Mm-hmm.
and then can hopefully make things better in the future.
Mm-hmm. We're cutting it.
Yeah, we got to cut that string.
We found it.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us in our lives right now, and maybe people in our age range or our age, like that are our age, maybe younger, and of course some older. Like, I'm not excluding anyone by any means when I say this, but like what I am seeing too, just in the people that are I'm around or that I know, that we have found the stitches.
Mm-hmm.
We're finding them. We're learning how to find them. We're learning what it means and learning what to do,
Mm-hmm.
and like finding other people who have paved the way to figure out, what do I do about this? Do I want to keep this stitch or not?
Mm-hmm.
again, we're going to apologize. Our dog is in the background right now, and we don't do any editing to our podcast. So Mia is along for the ride in this episode. We apologize for anyone getting startled by her tossing a toy around. Maybe you heard it, maybe you didn't, but these mics pick up on a lot.
Yeah, she just wants to be a part of it
Yeah.
today, I guess.
We must be hitting some sort of stitch for her. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. We put the black light on her stitch and it is illuminated.
Yeah, and
That's
also
all that's what I
welcome.
can like think of whenever you said like that we found the stitch. I'm thinking of like going to Chuck E. Cheese and they put
Oh my
the
gosh.
invisible marker on your hand and you have to go under the light and like show and like that is how your stitch is showing.
Yeah. Also, welcome to doing a podcast with someone who has ADHD.
Hi,
Who is that?
that's me.
Hi, your name is Laura,
I
and
have
you have
ADHD.
ADHD. This is also, we hope this will be just the realest podcast and probably the most frustrating podcast for some people. And if you don't, if you can't deal with that, you're probably not going to like sticking around with our podcast. But if you find some humor in it, please stick around because we know there are others out there who this is the way your brain works,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it affects me because then I get derailed because then Laura gets derailed. So welcome.
Sorry.
Welcome to those who haven't figured it out that Laura has ADHD. We'll talk about that in another segment. But another part of a thread,
Yep.
it took you a while to figure that out.
Mm-hmm.
These threads aren't always, now I say negative and positive. Anyone that knows me as a clinician, and even as a person, I try to stay away from positive and negative and switch it up,
Mm-hmm.
right? So to not as it's, I don't.
No black and gray. We like, or no black and white. We like gray.
Well, I mean, in this, like, it just is not labeling your
Mm-hmm.
emotions,
Yeah.
emotional or cognitive experiences, especially with certain events, as positive or negative, but instead this
Mm-hmm.
helpful and unhelpful.
Yeah.
Right. So I always like to make it a point to say that because a lot of things that I see like out on the internet,
Mm-hmm.
right? Look at your threads as, is this helpful or unhelpful now? Has this manifested in a helpful way or an unhelpful way? Because all emotions and all thoughts aren't bad or negative. They are just your little blues clues
Oh.
to help you understand, like, is this helpful or unhelpful now?
Mm-hmm.
We need the wide range of these emotional and cognitive experiences. Like, we need it all, but this positive and negative has an interesting reward system in our
Mm-hmm.
brain, I think, right? It kind of attaches itself to um, that I think can be sometimes more detrimental.
Mm-hmm.
But if I say, well, that is an unhelpful emotion or thought, I give myself a little room to now find out more about these threads that are the invisible threads that
Mm-hmm.
are actually little blues clues
Mm-hmm.
to different experiences in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, of course, we always want them to be positive or like helpful and get that little dopamine kick.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes you just have to work through the negative or unhelpful
Unhelpful. Yeah.
ones just to figure out what is going to be for the best.
Yeah. And you had asked me earlier too, like, what are my, like, how can I now maybe put all of this into an example or
Mm-hmm.
these concepts into more context?
Mm-hmm.
I figured I'll just share an example on this episode, right, of mine, which I'm like, also thought about this. Why don't I talk a little bit more about Emery, who is the
The title of the whole series.
basis of this podcast? So I guess to get even deeper into our thread concept, invisible thread concept, I'm going to still start off with another analogy.
Mm-hmm. You love those.
I do. But I this is how sometimes you can make more sense of what's going on in your life, or you remove yourself a little bit personally.
Mm-hmm.
Detach yourself a little bit personally so you get this kind of 3,000-foot view of your life and figure out what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So here's a question for you. Have you ever held a string, like any kind of string,
Hmm.
so tightly and like tried to play it like a guitar
I mean, yeah, I
and
play guitar,
make a noise
so.
out of it? No, I know, like, okay,
But yeah,
yeah, a guitar
I know what you
string,
mean.
yes,
Yes, if you like a fishing line, any kind
yeah,
of line, yeah, you could if you pull it tight enough and then you like pluck it,
makes a
it's going to
noise.
make a noise. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so it wasn't just me.
Yeah.
When I put like a rubber band over
Oh yeah.
a milk jug, you
Mm-hmm.
ever make that? You cut the circle out of it, and you
It was
make
a tissue
put a
box, and
toilet
you can
paper
make a
roll,
whole
or you could do
thing.
tissue
Mm-hmm.
box, yeah,
Yeah.
and then like it created a vibration.
Yep.
And obviously, I don't need to talk or explain a guitar to anybody. But even if I just held a string in the air right now,
Mm-hmm.
right, it creates a noise, a vibration,
Mm-hmm.
maybe an echo.
Yeah.
So these threads, when activated in your body,
Mm-hmm.
create echoes,
Like little ripple effects.
and they send signals and vibrations throughout your body
Mm-hmm.
to travel up to your brain
Mm-hmm.
and have it register with the parts of your brain
Mm-hmm.
that start to try and make sense of what is happening.
Mm-hmm.
More specifically, it's wanting to figure out if the original event is happening again or not, but with something new or someone new.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it like kind of takes little neurons and goes to your brain and like, yeah, it's like, okay, we have been in this situation before. Should we handle it the same way as before?
Yeah,
Or should we try something new?
yeah, yeah.
And so then where does Emery come in with this?
So now, Emery,
Mm-hmm.
right, the life I had, I guess a little storytelling time now, right? The life I had with Emery has probably been the loudest invisible thread I have had my entire life.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the way life was back then with her, it drastically changed for her and I in 2017. And what I had relied on every day after that was her.
Mm-hmm.
Every part of my life, right? Every little string, right? The different parts of our lives that make us who we are that I talked about earlier, right? In this episode, it changed. And those parts of me that changed with her.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like I had several spools of invisible threads
Mm-hmm.
that didn't have an off button. Like if you put the spool on a machine,
And just like keep
there was
rolling.
no off button. Once life changed, I mean, it was like,
Pedal to the floor, constant.
and that was my nervous system in overdrive. That
Mm-hmm.
pedal to the floor, overdrive, and no off button. And it stitched every unhelpful emotion,
Mm-hmm.
every unhelpful thought, and certainly every unhelpful behavior so tightly into just about every part of me that made me me. And it started to have a ripple effect
Mm-hmm.
because it started to change who I was. Like you mentioned earlier in this episode, too, how some of this starts to and can change who we are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. Like changes how you react to things. If you're like in the really bad place and like that's you're just like getting mummified by the stitchings. Um, I think that yeah, you just kind of get stuck in that area. Um, do you think that you noticed everything that was happening, or
Like at
could
the
you
time,
like feel the stitch, so to speak, at that
no,
time?
you knew me back then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How would you answer that?
Oh yeah, no.
No, absolutely not. And I say that because that's what happens to us. That's what can happen to us. Our nervous system, so my nervous system, right, in this era or that time frame, and the parts of my body um, that was working without me asking it to.
Mm-hmm.
And it will do that for you, right? It's going to work for you. right? The subconscious level is what I'm talking about. We have our conscious states and our subconscious states. And right, that's why I'm blinking and I'm breathing while I'm talking without asking myself to blink or breathe. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's like working for me.
Yeah.
But then if I engage it consciously, I can control some of that. And there are parts of this in our nervous system you could do the same thing. But at that time, and when it was in overdrive, and I was like detecting threat after threat, and I wasn't feeling the thread stitching together. I mean, I was experiencing intense moments day in and day out, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't recognizing the long term and some of the short term effects, yes. And maybe I was like thinking to myself, oh, this is going to be long term a problem. But
Mm-hmm.
you were right. Like, I really wasn't. And I could say that hindsight now.
Mm-hmm.
So, what can happen with your nervous system is it will just start stitching and piecing together things that or like it'll piece together that this was a really awful experience
Mm-hmm.
that we never want to experience again.
Mm-hmm.
And then it says this to itself: so I will pay attention to every detail in this stitch so that if anything comes remotely close to breaking open this seam, we will tighten it up even more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like nothing can penetrate it.
Yeah.
Tightly wound. Um, and then so does it always manifest or show up in the big ways? Or can it be in the small ways as well?
Um, people probably just heard our ice maker right there too.
All the sounds of the house today.
No, and I think some others may answer this right differently, but I don't know, think about what happens when you like rip open a seam
Mm-hmm.
or when a seam opens up.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's either gradually happening unknowingly, it's a quick rip from a
Mm-hmm.
sudden movement,
Mm-hmm.
or we notice it and then just rip it open ourselves. Did I miss any other maybe? Maybe you
Yeah.
get snagged on something.
Anyone at my job remembers me ripping multiple pairs of pants in the ambulance.
I was
So,
so hoping that you would bring that up.
yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So the
So
thing
yeah,
about,
those I did not knowingly make it happen. I just
yeah,
moved my leg and there it went.
and then poof, and then oh man, there it is.
Gotta
Yeah.
love stepping up into an ambulance.
Yeah. So with Emery in like that time, I think I didn't want to mess with the threads and the little intricate design that it made.
Mm-hmm.
Once I figured out what was happening over the years and maybe the months, I actually did not want to touch it
Mm-hmm.
because I knew, sorry, not because I knew, but I knew I needed to because it was starting to move and stitch itself into my relationships with people in an unhelpful way.
Mm-hmm.
My inability to stay present, oh man, and feel connected to anything
Mm-hmm.
was unraveling actually.
Mm-hmm.
And the ultimate to that was that then I didn't want to stay alive anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And anything or anyone that was a part of Emery's life for my nervous system ended up becoming a thread.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were associated in any way with her or anything in that time frame, that association, it became one of the thickest pieces of nylon that you could get, and it got stitched so tightly.
Mm-hmm. I feel like you had like braids of it.
You were there for it. You were
Mm-hmm.
part of that too.
Yeah.
I had braids of it. Yeah, yeah. And so then any activation or trigger that I got from that created then more threads,
Mm-hmm.
new thread, new memory, unbearable. And they all led back to Emery in 2017.
Mm-hmm.
It was overwhelming. And this isn't blaming anyone here. I just want to point that out.
Mm-hmm.
This was my nervous system, and this is what I was going through. and the threads actually had me falling apart internally. And I was acting like that's what was keeping me together
Mm-hmm.
to protect me. So for me, it was like it tightened up at the beginning, but the unraveling happened pretty fast and gradually,
Mm-hmm.
and I missed it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like you were caught a thread on a drawer handle and continued walking and didn't notice.
Yeah, they were falling. I was falling apart in the smallest ways,
Mm-hmm.
day by day.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't shower, I wouldn't eat,
Yeah, it was a real
I
tough
wouldn't
time.
brush my teeth. I got addicted to pain meds,
Mm-hmm.
and I was showing up to work in those conditions.
Yeah.
That is not a thread to keep me together. That's a if that's happening, like that's it's coming undone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is definitely not together any
It's
longer.
not. So that's how I knew, like in this like kind of small, there were so many other subtle things. Like I couldn't watch certain movies.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't listen to certain artists. I couldn't listen to certain genre. Country was out.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't hear certain things. I couldn't look at certain things. It was you know that
Mm-hmm.
all was actually what was coming undone. And in at the same time, while that was like kind of unraveling,
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna say like just blowing up essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I felt the anger and power from that. What was actually coming undone turned into anger.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just thinking that was the protection and tightening the thread. But you're here to also, I'm affirming now in hindsight, and you knew this all along as well. And you were part of the unraveling process as well,
Mm-hmm.
and different things that happened between you and I at that time too. But I mean, it was coming undone for years, and I didn't even see or feel it coming. It was like I would wake up one day, or I just at different points in my day, and it's like, oh, here we are.
Mm-hmm. That's enough for today now, so.
But I would think that this is the way that I should go about it to protect me.
Mm-hmm.
I was ignoring the fact that this was worsening.
Yeah. So, is there any like certain thing that helped you to then like get rid of these invisible, well, not necessarily get rid of the invisible ones, but to sew back up and make you you again?
Hmm. Well, I hit that rock bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm certainly not saying that you have to hit rock bottom, the rock bottom that I did to
Mm-hmm.
figure this out. I'm in fact trying to say this to people out there right now that don't don't let it unravel the way that I did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, try and get to not that point. Yeah, try and like catch yourself. Notice those invisible strings before it
Hmm.
gets that bad. Yeah, for sure. And work through those threads.
Yeah, because what I figured out was it was not it ended up not being the event itself,
Mm-hmm.
the person, the people, the music, the things. It was my sensations and my physiological states that I couldn't tolerate.
Mm-hmm.
And that was not just wrapped up into that one event, that went way farther back than I even imagined and realized.
Mm-hmm.
That was way before 2017. And it
Mm-hmm.
was just everything in addition to, and that was just a really, really intense moment and traumatic moment for me, right?
Mm-hmm.
But our threads are also our sensations that I'm mentioning. And it's our physiological states that are stitched together with our emotional verbiage and the cognitive, the narratives that have been created around the event. And it took me a couple of years, like it took me years
Mm-hmm.
to find Emery's invisible threads.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had consciously my hand in the unstitching of it.
Mhm.
So I unstitched it a little bit more and then restitched it together in a more tolerable way,
Mhm.
more comfortable stitch.
Yeah.
I was able to take that little annoying, like what was poking me,
Mhm.
and I was able to maneuver it a little bit differently so that now I can see it differently. Now I can talk about it right now and not have this intense reaction to it.
Mhm. For sure.
It took a lot, and the things that helped me recognize this, obviously, I used a lot of podcasts.
Mhm.
I listened to other people's experiences and journeys, and shout out to Pastor Stephen Furtick of Elevation Church. Like, that pulled me out.
Oh yeah, for
My
sure.
faith, when I had nothing, and I'll say this to people: when you have nothing, and you don't have to go this route. You can have whatever belief you have in, but a belief in something,
Mhm.
whether it is a higher power or not, find and if it's just a belief in yourself, I'll always say this to people, you got to start betting on yourself then to figure this out.
Mhm.
Find the right resources,
Is that still
obviously therapy.
on your board in
It's still
your
on my board
office?
in my, yeah,
Yeah,
bet
bet
on
on
yourself.
yourself.
But I recognized that I wasn't using all of my resources appropriately.
Mhm.
Therapy, obviously, back at it.
Yeah.
Um, I went and did jujitsu. I
Mhm.
looked at different things that can rebuild um, those, the cultural, the spiritual, like, um, and the beliefs in me back. I just tried to restore some of those values.
Mhm.
So that's, um, I think, what brought the tangled ball of invisible threads.
Mhm.
I brought them basically back to therapy also, and just said, "Hey, help me figure this out."
Mhm.
And one by one, they weren't invisible anymore.
Yep.
They had colors.
Mhm.
They didn't echo as loud, and I found that the actual parts of me that needed healed, um, with the new threads. So I had more, I ended up having more empathy and understanding for myself that ultimately just added to increasing my resiliency. Buzzword, and I bounced back.
Yep. Um as far as an invisible thread that I can think of, you saying how like with Emery everything was connected to her. You couldn't look at
Mm-hmm.
certain things, you couldn't see things, couldn't watch things. Yeah, I had the passing of a family member, and like that is exactly how I was as well. There were certain places I couldn't go, certain people I couldn't see, things on TV, you'd have to hurry up and change the channel. And so, yeah, those invisible threads sometimes do weave their way in. And just like you said, therapy, um, reading certain books,
Mm-hmm.
again, listening to podcasts, and just, I don't do it enough, but journaling,
Mm-hmm.
those things, yeah, can definitely help you unstitch them and then not forget them, but restitch them in a more comfortable way.
It's not. We're not. So when we talked about cutting off like a tag on a shirt and like how
Mm-hmm.
you can throw that away or cut the string off and throw it away,
Mm-hmm.
the difference with doing that with a piece of like a clothing, like your clothes, or
Mm-hmm.
on a blanket or something else, like you could throw that away. You can't really do that
Mm-hmm.
with, it's
These
encouraged not to
strong
try to make
threads.
them go into the black abyss, and like fragmented pieces you
Mm-hmm.
will, like in really traumatic events
Mm-hmm.
or life events, like there will be fragmented pieces that go into like a black hole,
Yeah, again,
and
that's
they,
just your nervous system
yeah,
protecting you.
yeah, and they can come back, and sometimes they don't. This is the part where we can't guarantee anyone in therapy of like, and even
Mm-hmm.
for myself right now, I'm even still, so from 2017 I will just be minding my own business in one week, and next thing you know I remember something that I didn't, and I'm like, oh, that one's there.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll happen, but you could just continue to build the skills to recognize the string as what it is for, Put a shape, an image, a color, something to it, so
Mm-hmm.
that now you could do something with it, and it's not, don't make it invisible anymore.
Yep.
Don't ignore it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't forget about it.
Yeah.
We know it's there and it can show up. And if it doesn't show up for you, maybe you are actually also practicing this resiliency. Some people, you've got it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're not born with it. You do have to, um, resiliency is a skill. You got to keep practicing it. We are not just born with that. So that's like, you may have already been working at that. If
Mm-hmm.
And for some people, some experiences, yeah, do not affect them as greatly or deeply as one may for someone else. So
Yeah.
that's the invisible
Yeah.
threads.
So, as always, this podcast obviously does not replace actual therapy. Um, this is not a session between me and Megan. She is not my therapist.
Feel
So
like it sometimes.
this is not actual therapy, and only your own experiences and knowledges. I'm sorry, only our own experiences and knowledge are being shared. So this is not how it is for everyone. The way that we do things is not necessarily always the way. Mandalorian
Yeah.
fans out there.
If you just notice that, if you notice this is resonating with you and getting you to think about some things in your life that you've experienced, that, or maybe some of those invisible threads that are now just starting to poke at you, please reach out to a professional
Mm-hmm.
and to help you start finding those invisible threads.
Yeah. So what's our next topic going to be about?
I don't know.
Oh.
Maybe continuation of following these invisible threads of our lives and how they created the echoes within us.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we might pivot to something completely different, maybe something lighthearted.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're going to keep you all on your toes
Yep.
and the edge of your seat, so waiting, just like we did with this episode.
Yeah, for sure.
But for real, we're not sure what the next episode is going to be. We're gonna have some time, let a couple weeks pass again, think about where we want the next one to go,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe what other segments we want to create. So
And as always, if there's anything that you guys want us to
yeah,
discuss, send a message, hit up the Instagram page,
yep,
any one
Echoes
of
of
those
Emery
things.
podcast. Yep.
Yep. So
Okay.
yeah. Until next time.
Until next time, take care of yourselves. Always remember, we want you here.
And have a good day.
Bye.